Welcome back to Garage Matters. Continuing from last week, we're down to the last bolt on the intake manifold. We're going to try a couple of different methods to try to get this last bolt out. Last week we sprayed the bolt down with WD-40, let it sit overnight and throughout the week. So hopefully that's enough to help loosen up the bolt. If that doesn't work, what we're going to do is we're going to try using a punch, a hammer, and an extractor socket. When I get underneath the car, what I'm going to do is try to break the torque on this nut. There's a couple of ways you can do that. I've already sprayed with WD-40. The second thing I'm going to try to do is take a hammer and try to just knock the torque out. So I'm just going to take the hammer, hit it a couple times. If I can't reach it with the hammer, I'll take this punch, put it right up against this nut, and then hit it with the hammer a couple times. Hopefully that's enough to break the torque. If that doesn't work getting the nut out, next thing I'm going to try is this socket extractor. Inside of this extractor, there's little grooves in there that is going to catch the rounded off head of that bolt. Hopefully this does the trick. Now there are other methods that you can try as well, but due to the lack of space, I can't get this impact wrench down under there. This impact wrench probably would have did the trick in the beginning, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna kind of like break the torque by like hammering this nut. Another method that you can try to break these seized bolts and nuts that are rusted on here is applying some heat. When you apply heat to the nut, what that's gonna do is it's gonna expand the metal. The metal's gonna expand. Once it cools down, it's gonna contract again. So the expansion and contraction is what's gonna break the torque on these nuts and bolts that are seized on here. Unfortunately, on this Toyota Camry, the intake manifold is made out of some kind of plastic polymer. So as far as applying heat to that intake manifold bolt area, can't really do it this time. With the weight of the vehicle supported by the jack and the jack stands, it's safe to go underneath the car. So let's get to it. Hell yeah. Looks like we did it. That's what I'm talking about, right there. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. There she is, folks. This screw came out with this socket extractor. Took some banging and clanging around with the hammer, but we were able to break this torque loose and get this bolt out. Alright guys, got this final bolt out. I'm gonna try to see if I can point it out to you guys. Last week it was in, this week it's out. How cool is that? Alright guys, now with the last bolt out, trying to lower this car and get to the intake manifold from the top. I'm gonna pull it out, probably call it for a week. Let's go ahead and get this manifold off. Looks like the only way we can do it is gotta climb back inside this car, so let's get to it. Okay. Alright, this manifold, we're just gonna set it down here. We don't need to try to wiggle it out because we're gonna have a hard time to wiggle it back in or try to put it back in here. This is good enough just so we can take the valve cover off and then take the head bolts out and then just lift off the head to change the head gasket. Everything looks good back here. Yeah. Looks like we're almost there, guys. Let's take a little closer look at this intake manifold. This thing, completely made out of plastic. Plastic intake manifold. How crazy is that? We'll take a closer look at this intake manifold. Here is where the intake runners go inside of the head. The air is going to go inside the intake manifold through the runners and into the top of the head right here. So what's going to happen is this air is going to go inside the head. It's going to mix with gas and air, and then the spark plug is going to send the spark, boom, giving you that horsepower. Let me show you what I was doing underneath the car with all that banging with this hammer. What I was doing was, with this socket extractor, it wouldn't really quite fit on this nut So what I was doing was putting this socket on here, taking this hammer and just whacking it. So I was whacking it so this socket will fit snugly on this nut. So you gotta whack it a couple times because it's not gonna really quite fit. So that's what all the whacking was, to get this socket onto this nut. Once the socket was on the nut, what I did was slowly started backing her out. One hand here to keep that 90-degree angle, and one here all the way at the end of this wrench to give me that extra leverage, and then slowly back her out. And here you go, the end result, bolt extracted. Well, there you go. Sometimes you get down to the last bolt and it seems like it doesn't want to come out and all hope is lost. Never give up. Sometimes you get lucky and it just comes right on out. Tune in next time to Garage Matters, and remember, like and subscribe.